Greetings, holiday shoppers. There are only a certain number of days left until Christmas, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of Christmas Creeps Stocking Stuffers. This time we have a double stuff edition. I am your host, Bradford, and here with me tonight is my wonderful co-host, Joey Wade. How are you, Joe?
Good evening, everybody. I'm doing well, Brad. How are you?
Never better. We watched an episode of one of my favorite television shows, and we're going to talk about it tonight.
You get your NPR voice on for this one. I love it.
Now you're going to want to be sure to braise your cabbage at about 250 degrees. Welcome back to the Splendid Table. I'm your host, Bradford, and here tonight is Joseph, and tonight we are talking about all Korean cooking.
So good.
If you have experiences with brisket or other Korean barbecue, please send us a line at Christmas Creeps. We're on Twitter. We're the
Christmas.
We're the skull with the candy cane crossbones. Coming up next is All Things Considered.
Christmas Creeps is made possible by contributions by listeners like you.
Christmas Creeps is made possible by the Bill and Gates Melinda Foundation. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Tonight we are... Yeah?
I want to start this episode by saying, boy, we're in a little bit of a pickle here tonight, aren't we?
We are, because if you've listened to Stocking Stuffers before, we have made it a goal, which we have not always achieved, especially when Johnny Five is on the show. He's not joining us tonight. We've tried to make Stocking Stuffers at least a little more work-friendly, a little more work-safe, a little more PG. And we watched something that was decidedly not any of those things, because we watched one of the, I would say, more controversial and raunchy shows on cable television in their Christmas special. We watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Season 6, Episode 13. A very sunny Christmas, I believe it's called.
Yes.
Always Sunny.
Double length episode.
Yes, that's why we're calling it a double stuff. Always Sunny is one of my favorite television shows, and we brought it up on the most recent recording session of our full show, and I absolutely wanted to watch this episode. I'd totally forgotten that it exists, but it was a good time. But there are things that we are going to address as best as we can in this, but if some reason you're letting a child listen to this, I don't know why you would. You probably should just skip this episode, because we're going to do our best with euphemisms, but we are going to acknowledge the existence of sex and other things.
And violence and all kinds of swearing. We're going to... I can't promise that we're going to be able to bleep everything in this episode, but I've got the button ready to go right here.
Come on and slam, and welcome to the jam.
We'll see how it goes.
We're gonna do our best, so please bear with us, but also please know that this is, despite our best efforts, will probably not be something you want to listen to in front of your boss. Why
yeah, I think this might be a fun episode, though, because as very much R-rated as this TV episode is, we're going to restrain ourselves from using such language. And An Always Sunny Christmas.
Yes, we are presented with the usual "It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia" opening cards, where it is 9 a.m. Christmas Eve. And Charlie and Mac are decorating the bar for Christmas. Patty's Pub, if you're unfamiliar. And
Dee and Dennis walk in and ask them why they're putting up Christmas decorations the day before Christmas. And Charlie and Mac reply, "That's our tradition."
Yes, that's their tradition, that they get blackout drunk on eggnog and then wake up Christmas Eve and then decorate the bar. Yes. So we have kind of an A plot and B plot going on here. Where Charlie and Mac are doing their own thing and Dee and Dennis are doing their own thing. So we kind of jump right into it, where Dee and Dennis are complaining about how Frank, their father, always ruins Christmas for them by finding out what they want the most and then getting it for himself. And so we see Frank pull up to Patty's in a Lamborghini. I don't remember the model because I'm really bad with cars.
A bright yellow Lamborghini.
Yes.
And he breaks out of the driver's seat in a yellow tracksuit and just shouts, "Merry Christmas, bitches."
And then we get the title card of "It's Always Sunny," as we do with the cold open. It's so good.
We jump straight into the Mac and Charlie story where they are comparing their own family Christmas traditions. And we see a videotape from Christmas 1985 of Mac's family Christmas, where his dad is videotaping them opening Christmas presents, and his mom opens up a box and it's a cashmere sweater, and then his dad opens up a box and it's a stereo for the living room, and then young Mac freaks out and demands to open a present right this second, and it's a Cabbage Patch doll, and he starts squealing with delight, screaming as loud as he can,
flipping out. Yes. The camera turns to the upstairs where a family is freaking out and wondering what's going on, and it's coming down the stairs. And we cut back to Mac and Charlie, where Mac explains that that's the tradition. That's a South Philly tradition. You go to other people's houses and open presents, and other people come to your house and open your presents.
And that's why there were never any presents under our tree, because the neighbors' kids took them all.
Yes. And of course, Charlie explains that no, all of these presents are stolen. We also have a really great vignette of Charlie trying to play Simon, which is amazing.
Yeah, he gets one in, and then he gets two buttons in, and his brain just shuts down.
Still, I think maybe my favorite quote in this entire episode, this double episode, is them talking about Captain Caveman. Where they say they have this inflatable club, and they're like, well, we used to shave all the neighborhood dogs and then paste the dog hair to our faces and then bash the dogs to bits, and it's just like the most terrible, ambiguous thing possible, but it's so Always Sunny. It's so good. It's
the most horrifying childlike game I've ever heard in my life.
Yes. So Charlie says, okay, well, that's not real Christmas. Your dad is a liar and a thief and a murderer, and I'm going to show you how Christmas is really done. So they go to Charlie's mom's house, where through a number of flashbacks, it is revealed that Charlie's mom, I think this is the first episode where they actually reveal it, is that Charlie's mom is a prostitute, because Charlie talks about how every Christmas morning all of the Santas, plural, would arrive, and the Santas would give Charlie a gift and then give Charlie's mom money and go upstairs and keep her company for a while.
Yeah, Charlie, adult Charlie mentions, we're going to get food, we're going to get presents, the Santas are going to come by later.
Yes. And to that point, Charlie's mom's house is like full on.
It's the
traditional
picturesque Christmas household.
It's like a Norman Rockwell Christmas. She's making cookies. They're enjoying drinks. Christmas music is on, and it's all done up to the nines. And then it's revealed that Charlie may have remembered part of his past with rose-colored glasses, and it also shows the origin of Charlie's huffing habit, where one of the Santas gives him a bottle of rubber cement, and he begins sniffing that, while a little person comes down and grabs a drink because it's very hot. Sans pants, which will also inform a gag later. There's
a running theme in this show, apparently. But my favorite little detail in this scene is that, like, when young Charlie's opening the present of the rubber cement, it's not like it wrapped up. It's in a shirt box.
Yes,
it's in a box that you would gift a shirt in, and it's just rolling around in the box.
I think there were some slippers in there too, and he just throws them away.
Maybe. I just like the idea of someone putting a bottle of rubber cement in a shirt box.
Yes, it's very good. And so Mac ends up informing Charlie that Charlie's mom is a prostitute, and Charlie is sort of in denial, and he has to usher them out of there. Meanwhile, in the B plot, Dee and Dennis decide to pull a Christmas Carol on Frank, because Frank believes that his old business partner is dead. So they contact Frank's old business partner, who is played by whoever the actor is.
David Huddleston.
David Huddleston. If
you remember him at all, you remember him from Blazing Saddles or The Big Lebowski.
As Lebowski.
As the Big Lebowski, yes.
Yes.
Jeffrey Lebowski, the millionaire. Yes.
Yes. Who tells Dee and Dennis that he has recently been born again and wants to share the good word with Frank. But they convince him to dress up in chains and do a Ghost of Christmas Past. They start pumping in smoke underneath the door of Frank's apartment, his squalid apartment that he shares with Charlie. Frank believes there's a fire and throws a chair through the window, but eventually believes that his business partner is a ghost and attacks him with a golf club. It is eventually revealed that he is alive, and that they try to they show Frank a video from 1986 of Frank faking out both Dee and Dennis by putting a ton of presents under the tree, including a huge one, and they're all empty. And Frank admits,
open the big one. Open the big one first, and it's like a refrigerator box, and they open it, and there's nothing in it, and they're like, "Dad, there's nothing in here." And he turns the camera to himself and says, "They're all empty.
They're all empty." It's I don't know if you listeners have watched Always Sunny before. There are certainly controversial things that Always Sunny does, but Danny DeVito as Frank is just an amazing performance. It's just delightful. Like, everybody's having so much fun, you can tell, and that shines through in this episode.
Absolutely, yeah.
So they decide to convert over to Christmas Present because that doesn't work. So they go to Frank's old real estate office and they put Frank inside of a couch during the Christmas party. And there's just the best visual gag where Frank, Danny DeVito is pushing up against this barrier of pleather, just like imposing his face in his hands. It looks so creepy. And Dennis and Dee are trying to get anybody to say something bad about Frank Reynolds, and nobody really knows who he is. And then it eventually ends with Frank busting out of the couch fully nude to get some air, and then he leaves the party.
Yeah, it's a very like Abbott and Costello who's on first kind of routine, because they keep asking him like is there a guy in the couch? And like, no, we're not talking about the guy in the couch. We just want you to say something bad about Frank. Who's Frank? So Frank's the guy in the couch. It's a very well written scene.
It's a very good scene, both between the writing and the visual gag. It's Joe and I were both laughing our heads off. So we cut back to...
If we could have just released the audio of us watching this episode, it would be just a constant stream of giggles.
Yes. So we cut back to the A plot, I guess you would call it, with Charlie and Mac. And so Mac has this Omnibot, which is a small radio-controlled robot. And they go to the
80s Radio Shack
Yeah, kind of riding on the coattails of like Teddy Ruxpin.
Yeah, I kind of remember
those. It had a cassette player in it. I think this was a real thing.
I think so. I think I've seen things like this at Radio Shack before, and I always kind of wanted one, but then I always remember thinking, like, what would I do with this if I had it? And I don't know, but
that's the answer.
I think that's everybody's experience with those things, was like they see them and they go, oh, that looks cool. I don't really want one, but that looks cool.
It is very toyetic. So they go to the house of the guy that Mac originally stole it from, and they show it to him. And they assume that he would not want it back. And so as you can imagine, this young man is very offended that they would show up with something that was stolen from him 20 years ago just to apologize but not give the robot back. So they decide to make amends by going down to the mall and buying his children whatever the hot toy this year is, and maybe giving him a shirt because they have both determined that he is in a rut because he shows up to the front door, even though it's Christmas Eve, wearing a robe. So they do that, and they go to the toy store, and they are unable to acquire Red the Robot, I think.
Redmond the Robot. Yeah, that's the hot new Christmas toy.
Redmond the Robot. But the big scene of this is Mac is thinking about stealing Redmond, but he says it's a self-perpetuating cycle, and Charlie claims that he's doing all right, even though his mom is a prostitute.
Can I stop right here and just say I'm very glad this episode did not take a Jingle All the Way turn, where Charlie and Mac are now determined to get a Turbo Man Redmond the Robot for this dude's kids.
I feel like it could have been pulled off, but I feel like it would not have been in the spirit of Always Sunny.
Right, like they're already trying to do a Christmas Carol plot. Well, you know what? That might have been great. Like if they had done the other plot is already a Christmas Carol plot. So let's take the Charlie and Mac plot and turn it into some other like quote unquote holiday classic parody.
Yes, but so many of the Charlie and Mac plots of every other episode of Always Sunny are so scatterbrained and end up absolutely nowhere near where you think they would have been.
Right. Yeah. So maybe it's for the best, honestly.
Yeah. It would have been a little, I don't know, it would have been an out of character, I think, if they had single-mindedly worked on tracking this toy. I think for if it was just a Charlie plot, maybe. But they see a mall Santa, and Charlie goes into a bit of a fugue state.
It immediately triggers his, like, newfound PTSD over Santa Clauses.
Yes, and so he walks up, and there's this scene where, all of the audio is kind of blurred. And Charlie walks up and he sits onto Santa's lap. And get your bleeper button ready. He sits on Santa's lap and he goes, "Santa, did you fuck my mom?" And he repeats this many, many times. And Joe ends up asking me, yeah, there were probably what? 12 F-bombs?
Yeah, he says it like 20 times.
And Joe ends up asking me, it's like, did this air on television? I'm like, yeah, but they bleeped it out. Which is the truth.
Yeah. But also like this is FX in the mid to late 2000s, so we're getting into a period where the upper late night cable channels are kind of starting to become okay with just like whatever swearing you want to do, like just go.
I assume that it was bleeped, but I don't know that to be the case. But I know that a lot of these shows, especially the FX ones, will bleep the cable version, but whatever shows up on Hulu or DVD or direct-to-video ends up being uncensored.
Yeah, and I know like certain shows, like prestige shows like Breaking Bad, they can get away with it if they do it sparingly.
Yes.
But like,
wait, are there F-bombs in Breaking Bad?
They're in the later seasons. They let them like drop a couple of F-bombs, yeah.
And they don't bleep it on cable?
Nope.
See, I have gone. It has been. Let's see. It's been 12 years since I've had regular access to any sort of television other than what's like internet television.
Yeah.
So see, I don't even know. I did know about like super late night, like 2 a.m. They'll find sponsors that are okay with uncensored media,
right?
But
and like South Park is starting to get away with it now too.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
They've been pushing that envelope for years, but I think we're at a point now where I think late night cable can really get away with whatever, because honestly, who's going to get upset about F-bombs at 2 a.m. on an FX? Really?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what did you think you were getting into?
But the point still stands.
At this point.
The point still stands. You're probably right. They definitely had to have bleeped this because it's kind of, for a minute or two, it's just a nonstop stream of Charlie accusing Santa of his mom.
And then Charlie ends up biting the neck of Santa Claus and creating a bloody spectacle in which children are screaming and running. And they get out of Dodge.
Mac accidentally like elbows some mom in the face
and knocks her
daughter
out.
Is just screaming and crying. It's terrible. It's such a horrifying scene.
It's very Always Sunny. Like, it's very much
Like, I haven't seen a lot of Always Sunny, but yeah, it's quintessential as far as I can tell.
It is one of the few comedy shows that I've seen every episode of because I don't know. I just really like Always Sunny. I was the one who suggested this episode, by the way, if you did not notice, because I think I'm much more enamored with the series than Joe is.
I just don't have enough exposure to it at this point, and I really should.
So we cut back to the A plot, or rather the B plot, and Dee and Dennis have taken Frank and his old business partner to a graveyard, and they show him a grave where I think it just says, Frank, he was a dick.
He was a dick, and now he's dead.
Now he's dead, and there's a hole in the ground, as though that is the last piece that is required. And it's very phoned in, and Frank says, no, this isn't working. And they abandon Frank's old business partner in the graveyard.
Off and they leave Eugene in the graveyard, and they comment on it immediately, like, "Man, did we leave him in the graveyard? Ah, shit. Oh
well." So everybody kind of convenes back at Patty's, and the best little detail. I don't think we had mentioned this before, but Charlie and Mac have a Christmas tradition from when they were little, that the most important Christmas tradition is throwing rocks at passing trains.
Yes.
And they're kind of reconvening and licking their wounds, so to speak, at Patty's, and Mac is looking at a train schedule from Philadelphia. It's the best little detail in this entire episode.
It's a good setup for the final shot of the episode, too.
Yes. And of course, throughout this entire episode, you have all of your classic Christmas music, it's just really used very, very well. You know, scenes of horrific violence or profanity are synced up with White Christmas or It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year.
Yeah, it's a really good juxtaposition of wholesome Christmas music with just depraved insanity.
Yes, that you have come to expect from the Always Sunny brand. And
we've
seen this before in cinema, where action movies think it's cute to, sync up White Christmas with a gun battle or something like that. But it just feels right here at Always Sunny because they've been using this sort of twee, jingly music since the first season.
Right, that's kind of been their bread and butter. They use like that stock sort of like 50s sitcom kind of music to underscore how much things have changed since then.
Yes.
But I think as far as our show goes, like a prime example of this is like the opening scene of Krampus, where it's like the slow motion shots of all of the people at midnight on Black Friday tearing stores apart and just fist fighting each other, and then they're underneath it they're just playing what is it? I think it's Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. I think it's one of those songs,
Right. I don't think I was around for the Krampus episode, but yeah.
It's that kind of juxtaposition of just like I said, depraved violence and sort of traditional wholesome goodness. Like that's Always Sunny in a nutshell, and that's kind of our show in a nutshell too.
A little bit.
But anyway, so the gang remind me how it goes from here. The gang decides to go to that guy's house.
Yes, they decide to go caroling, and he is wearing the bloody shirt that they had gotten at the mall for this guy. And they start singing Old Holy Night at 4 a.m, and the neighbors begin throwing glass bottles at them. And they start superimposing the official version of, like a crooner version of Old Holy Night over it.
Yeah.
And they're Dennis's Range Rover gets towed away in the middle of this scene. And so they have to hoof it back to the bar, and it's 6 a.m. on Christmas Day. And they get inside, and it's all done up to the nines. Oh, at a point before this, Frank had called them, or rather the hospital had called them and said that Frank was dead. So they show up at the hospital, and Frank is alive. He had sprained his ankle because he can't get the door closed on the Lamborghini because he is too short. I believe Danny DeVito is four. Sorry, go ahead.
Which calls back to a gag from the beginning of the episode where he's explaining to them this rig that he's trying to make for the Lamborghini, which is basically a coat hanger and a bag of sand that he can use to close the door.
Pull down the door
because he's too short to close the door on his own.
But it also goes into the thing where Frank not only buys the presents for himself, but ruins them. He bought a designer bag that Dee wanted and filled it with Cheetos. And is eating the Cheetos out of the designer bag. So he is too short to get the door of the Lambo closed, and he spins out and falls out and sprains his ankle. And everybody shows up, and Frank confesses that he's a changed man. So after their caroling mishap, the gang goes back to Patty's, and it's all done up to the nines. There's like a model train on the bar, and it looks sweet as hell. There's a giant Christmas tree with real presents underneath it, and Frank gives Dennis the Lambo, but lo and behold, Frank's old business partner is actually still a liar and a cheat, and pulls a gun on everybody, and steals all the Christmas presents, even though he's trying to profess the good word of the Lord throughout the entire episode, and turns on an old snow machine on everybody, and we get the nice little White Christmas portion.
He just blasts. It goes into slow motion. It just blasts them into the Christmas tree and just knocks them into the walls. And the snow machine just goes kind of. I don't know if it's haywire or if it's just that powerful, but good lord, they go flying. My favorite detail in this scene is as he's holding them hostage at gunpoint, Charlie just kind of casually says, "We don't even know you."
Yeah, they hadn't even met this character throughout the entire episode. And they have to throw Redmond the robot, which they had received.
Frank brought the last one.
Yes, Frank brought the last one, and they receive it, and they decide not to give it to that guy that they were trying to make amends with the entire time. They decide to keep it for themselves.
Like I know, like everyone refers to this show as kind of like the extension, the natural extension of Seinfeld, where it's like no hugging, no learning. But good lord, this episode really leans into that hard.
I mean, the whole thing with Always Sunny is like every single one of these characters are just terrible people, and everything that happens to them is like completely deserved.
Right, richly deserved. Yeah.
I don't know why I like Always Sunny so much, but I think it's that. I don't know. I think it's almost sort of like this Goofus and Gallant thing where you receive this sort of cruel pleasure from viewing like the absolute opposite of what anybody should do at any given point in time. Just like the worst possible people. Like Seinfeld, they're morally ambiguous, but no, like every single one of the gang are just horrible people through and through, except for maybe Charlie, who has like a spark of innocence left, and that's it.
A spark of innocence and potentially brain damage.
Oh, absolutely! From huffing all the paint and glue.
Yeah. But you know, you're absolutely right. I mean, the whole crux of the show is terrible people doing terrible things to each other and always being stuck in the same situation because, surprise, they're terrible people. Like they don't. It is, as far as I know, I haven't seen but like 2 or 3 seasons of it. But like they never seem to get one up on anybody. Like,
oh no, it's this show is karmically neutral. Like. Every single time. That's part of the beauty of this show is like the gang are terrible, yes, but nothing good ever happens to any member of the gang, which is it's a nihilistic show in some regards. It's
very much a sitcom where they always kind of wind up in the same place that they started. It is very chaotic and very aggressive, but I think the show kind of comes around to the idea that you know, as terrible as these people are, they both kind of deserve each other, and you know, they make their own traditions, they make their own happiness, because at the end of the episode, what do we see?
We see all 5 of the gang picking up rocks and throwing them at the train, as is their Christmas tradition. And we are treated to Jingle Bell Rock, which, of course, is on the nose and appropriate. There is one thing we didn't mention, which was in the hospital when they were visiting with Frank. We are treated to a Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer style stop motion.
Wow, how did we forget that?
I don't know. because it's kind of one of the set pieces of this, and I believe they did it before Community, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe. So Frank says as he had his accident, he has a vision.
Yes.
And the vision is that it goes into this stop motion, Rankin Bass kind of Christmas setting, and Hermie the elf is there to sing to Frank a song about how
the gang is basically going to eviscerate him, and is incredibly violent.
Right, because of all of the terrible things that Frank has done to them over the years, and the fact that he definitely deserves it. And Hermie gives him sort of the rundown of all, they're going to cut his arms off and cut his legs off, and they're going to string him up on a Christmas tree by his spine, but they're not going to kill him because he doesn't. He deserves worse than that. And it's very gross and very disturbing, and parents hide your kids from this scene.
Yes, and so I just looked it up. This predates the Community episode that does a similar thing by 1 year. This aired in November of 2009, and Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas, which is pretty much a similar gag, does this in December of 2010, which is
Stay tuned for that.
Is also an amazing episode, and I feel like we're going to have a mini-series on Community Christmas episodes coming up very soon, because Community is one of the first shows that Joe and I ever bonded over.
And guess what? It's coming out on Blu-ray in August.
Oh, is it? The full series?
Yep, that joke the joke that Community will never come out on Blu-ray can finally die.
I guess I need to get that.
It's got kind of that tactile look that a lot of stop motion has, but it's also kind of grubby and dirty and gross looking as well.
Well, it's absolutely trying to play off the Rankin Bass.
Yeah, definitely, but it kind of keeps that Always Sunny charm of being sort of off-putting and weird.
Oh, it's so bad. It's and not even to mention unspeakable acts of violence are committed to Frank during this.
And not just by the gang, but also by some off-brand California raisins that for some reason are dressed as Klansmen.
Yes, because Always Sunny.
Because we've got to reference as many like stop motion animated things as we can, and the claymation Christmas is another touchstone, I think, of kind of our generation. Brad, are you familiar with that?
Claymation
Christmas.
Claymation Christmas. I mean, I'm familiar with the Rankin Bass specials.
Well, no, there's an actual like late '80s Christmas special called A Claymation Christmas from the studio that would eventually become Leica.
Okay.
And it's very good. It's basically just sort of a montage of different cartoon set pieces set to Christmas songs, but it's really, really very quite charming. And
I had no idea this existed. And
I would recommend it for our show sometime.
As a fan of Leica, I had no idea, and I'm assuming it features the California Raisins at some point.
It does. It features the California Raisins singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Okay.
And just for like an added bonus, I'm fairly certain at that point in the mid '80s, the California Raisins were voiced by whichever members of the Temptations were alive back then.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
And then Kubo shows up. No.
And then Kubo is there, and Paranorman and Kubo have a fight. No. So yeah, Always Sunny. Always Sunny Christmas starts with them explaining their Christmas tradition of throwing rocks at trains, and it ends with their Christmas tradition of throwing rocks at trains, and it comes around full circle, and it's kind of lovely. It's terrible and gross, but kind of lovely.
I think that's kind of Always Sunny in a nutshell. Like, these people are the dregs of society, and they're terrible people through and through. And they deserve each other, but also at the end of the day, they have each other, you know?
Right. Like, terrible people deserve to be happy too, I guess. Some terrible people deserve to be happy.
I kind of feel like that's maybe the moral of Always Sunny, and it's like, yeah, terrible people are going to be terrible. I don't know. Everybody deserves to be happy, I guess, so long as they're not. I mean, obviously, they do a lot of shit to other people. If they weren't doing shit to other people, I would say they deserve to be happy.
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah, for real.
They're really making other people unhappy, which is not really addressed. But anyways, Always Sunny I think this is the only Christmas episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So
for a show that's been on for 12 seasons, it's kind of a shame.
I don't know. I feel like one is enough for Always Sunny. I feel like any more than that would be a retread. They've only done like 2 sequel episodes as far as I know. Charlie McDennis. They did Charlie McDennis 2 Electric Boogaloo. And I believe they also did, what was it? Oh, that awful episode. I can't remember. Anyways, I don't know. I'm okay with there only being one Christmas episode of It's Always Sunny.
That's fair. Yeah, and you can find this episode on Hulu and wherever else you watch TV.
Yes.
It's like we said, it's a double length episode, so get ready for that. And the last thing I guess we have to do is decide our metric for these TV episodes is if you were holding a Christmas party, would you put this on in the background for your guests? Would you put it in part of your TV holiday marathon?
I'm gonna say yes, but I'm gonna qualify this in that it depends on who it is. If there are children present, or if it is mixed company, which I don't know what they like, then I would say no. But if it's like the gang, the crew, for lack of a better term, like you and my other friends who I know can appreciate this kind of humor, I would definitely include it.
I would not put this on like at a family gathering.
Oh no, no way. Yeah,
but as a late night sort of change of pace at like a friends only Christmas party. Oh hell yes,
a late night we're all drinking Christmas party. Yeah, definitely. Did I ever tell you the story from when I went over to my cousin's house when I was like super little and they were watching the South Park episode with Mr. Hanky? And my mother did her best, bless her, to divert me from the television when Mr. Hanky was spelling out Noel on the mirror in poof. And then I went and played Crash Bandicoot in the living room, in somebody's bedroom, and that was all right, I guess. That was a good time. That was a memorable Christmas. Let me put it that way.
Bradford was never the same.
A little bit.
So yeah, I enjoyed this. I'm not the most savvy as far as Always Sunny goes, but I enjoyed it. I like a good Always Sunny episode, and this definitely was a good one.
Yes.
So if you have questions or comments or hey recommendations for other episodes you'd like us to cover on this show, you can get at us a number of different ways. You can email us at xmascreeps@gmail.com. Find us on Twitter @ChristmasCreeps. Go to facebook.com/ChristmasCreeps and leave us a message. Or if you'd like, and we very much encourage this, please go to iTunes and leave us a star rating and a review. That lets other people know that this is a show worth listening to.
We'd love you forever.
We would be your best friends forever. We would get you the Redmond the Robot for Christmas.
Send me your address. I'll literally send you a postcard. That is a stone cold promise. I'm actually I am.
Postcard, Brad. This is a Christmas show. We're sending Christmas cards.
A Christmas card or a postcard. I am bribing people now. If you show me a screenshot of your review, I don't even care if it's 1 star. You can send me a 1-star review. You can send me a 5-star review. You can send me anything in between. If you send me a review that you left on iTunes
or Stitcher or YouTube or wherever else we have podcasts.
Yes. If you send me a screenshot of that with an address, I will stone cold send you a piece of mail to that. And that is 100%. That is a Bradford guarantee.
Hold the phone. We are not encouraging you to put your address in the comment.
Don't put it in the comments. Don't put it in the comments. Just send it to us privately. So yeah, don't. The internet's a scary place in 2018. So
you could get swatted.
Be careful. Idea. But you can trust your old friend Bradford.
You can always trust Bradford.
I can send you a piece of mail. I used to have a P.O. box that I used to do snail mail with strangers. It was a lot of fun. But anyways.
All right. So I think that's going to do it for this episode of Christmas Creep Stocking Stuffer Edition. I have been Joseph Wade.
And I'm Bradford.
And we are wishing you a happy summer, everybody. Stay cool out there.
And a Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year.
Yay! Da 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 da. Happy Christmas!
Happy Christmas! Happy Christmas!